Bahamas too. I'll get my lemonade.
Hey, Daniela, it's good to see you.
Jacqueline's here from
Thank
Bahamas
you.
as well.
All right.
Well, again, thank you all, and I'm going to mute myself and step back out of the way so Lois can take over again. Thank you.
All right, I am muting everybody at this moment. And here we go. Welcome, everyone, to the Empowerment Weekend. My name is Lois Margolin, and I will be your facilitator for this particular session. We are going over some important housekeeping first, and this loses its punch if you were there at the last session, but we're not at a contest. This is actually a weekend of fun training, and you are now muted, and you will remain muted until our speaker asks me to unmute or finishes her presentation. But your videos are on, so you can say hello and you can get great big smiles. At the end of the session, I will paste an evaluation form link in the chat window, and I do hear that Brie is not off the table. Let's hear about Ambika Devi. She transforms your beliefs and lights up the path of success for you as a speaker with hands-on experience that produce breakthroughs for you to prepare to speak and get over your stage fright. She is an international award-winning author and indie publisher of 3 books, an expert astrologer and a meditation Jedi. She is a riveting and dynamic speaker, sure to introduce you to your inner wizard. Her pockets are filled with multiple degrees and fields of study, including Masters in Yoga and Meditation, Bachelor's degree in Astrology and Fine Arts. Stuffed inside her backpack are colored pens, a journal, a Kindle, a passport full of stamps, and a deck of tarot cards. Absorb her passion and be guided to find inner peace, outward success, and a greater level of health and happiness. She has appeared on the Learning Channel, network radio, and in periodicals as a relationship and a communication expert. If that's not enough, she has taught holistic health at the university level for 21 years, which means she started it when she was 5, and is a true guide on your forward journey to reach your highest potential. Your takeaways from this engaging talk is a toolkit of skills to use for years to come. Please help me welcome Ambika Devi.
Thank you so much, Lois. I know people stumble on my name all the time, and it has so many syllables. It's Ambika Devi, but don't worry about it. It's not a problem. I'm wondering, have any of you ever met anyone famous? If you have, give me a thumbs up, or maybe you didn't know. This is my I'm not sure or yes and no. I like to see you on cam, so let me see those thumbs up on cam. There you go. And I'm not one yet, but I'm aiming to be one. There was a day in my life where I had a big concert. I used to be a musician, and I had an organization of 10 amateur drummers along with 10 amateur singers, and we got the opportunity to be a part of a huge peace conference at Princeton University. So of course I said yes, and we all went and did our whole warm-up, and we took pictures. We were going to open for somebody truly famous. Well, we went outside, took these pictures, and went inside to get ready to do our opening act. And there he was, Richie Havens. How many of you knew who Richie Havens, or know who Richie Havens is? Right on. He was at Woodstock, and he said to everybody in the hall, let's make a circle. So of course we ran up and started forming a circle holding hands. And my hand went into Richie Havens' hand. And I can remember what his big chunky silver rings felt like against my fingers. And I remember what my knees felt like shaking. And I think pretty much all that came out of my mouth was as I turned to smile and then turn back to the focus of the group. What I'm going to share with you in the next 50 minutes is going to change the way you open your mouth forever. I've got 8 steps for you that you're going to go through with me. And now you'll know all my secrets of what I do before I get on stage. Who's up for that? Right on. If you have questions during this talk, please do type them into the chat. There might be a point where I catch one, but definitely at the end, it's my intention to give you time for Q&A with me, just in case there's something that comes up and I didn't get to it during what I'm sharing with you. But what I'd like for you to do right now is to join me in what I do first, which is I tune in to what's going on with my breath. Show me just visually, those of you who are on camera, what happens to you with your breath when you feel fear come up in your body. For me, it looks something like this. Who's with me on that? Anybody ever do that? It could be suddenly the lights go on or off, or you run into somebody you weren't expecting to see. So the first thing that I like to do is just notice what's going on with my breath. So I invite you to do that as well. Notice, are you breathing more in and out through your nose or more in and out through your mouth? Because we want to get the breath in and out through the nose to calm the body down. So let's just do that right now. Breathing in and out through your nose. And I find that if you let your mouth go into a little smile, it makes everything better. And then I make some sounds because we're going to speak, so we've got to warm up the voice. So let's take in a deep breath, and then the sound we're going to make is ah. We'll do this a couple times. Take a deep breath in with me. Ah. It can be just a little sigh at first, but this next one, let's make this one even bigger. Take another deep breath in. Ah. Now we'll say the sound ah a little higher in the voice and sliding down, like we're really enjoying something, maybe the water or a great drink. Take a deep breath in. Ah. When we say the sound ah, and you're welcome to do it more times if you want while I'm talking. When we say the sound ah, it actually takes us outside of ourselves. And this is a really good thing because when we're outside of ourselves, we can then witness what's going on. And this can be a calmative happening all by itself. But let's take this even further. The next sound we're going to make together is ooh. Take a deep breath in. Ooh. That was excellent. Do it again. Take a deep breath in. Ooh. How many of you are already feeling your energy change just from doing that little bit with me? It works. It really works. Let's do one more ooh. Ooh. And now we're going to say the sound mmm. Deep breath in. Mmm. That's right. And notice if you can make the buccal area, the muscles around your mouth, vibrate just a little bit when you make that mmm sound, because you can push the sound more forward or draw it up. But let's try and make it go more forward right now. Take a deep breath in. Mm. Now, have any of you ever opened your mouth to speak and a squeaky sound came out instead of words? Has anybody ever had that happen? That happens to me if I'm nervous. So I make sure before I do any kind of speaking or recording that I go through these sounds, and sometimes I put them all together. But this sound, we can also use to make a squeaky sound to smooth out the vocal cords. So it kind of sounds like this. And this is a trick I know as a vocalist. from my years of singing in bands. So when we squeak like this and squeak at different pitches in the voice, we can actually go through what are called the bridging points in our voice, and this will smooth it out. So when you're going really soft in a talk and then you want to get really big, you won't have any cracks or squeaks in your voice. Another thing is also really important. Keep yourself hydrated. Keep water nearby whenever you're speaking, because you never know when you'll start to feel a little bit dry. And it's perfectly acceptable to take a pause and have something to drink. The next thing I usually do, which I've already done before I've come to you today, is shake things off. Now that could just be shaking my hands out or shaking my shoulders or my head. But sometimes what I'll do is I will really shake out. I'll jump up and down, and I'll shake my limbs and kick my legs and maybe even spin around a bit. This really helps me when I need to get centered and grounded in my body. And that's the next step. After shaking off unnecessary energy, what I do is I get in touch with where my center is. Now, the center is located in the area just behind and a little bit below the navel. So if you don't know how to get in touch with that area, what you can do later is you can take something that weighs about 2 pounds, lie down on your back on a hard surface, and place that weight just below the navel. This will help you get in touch with where your center is. The more you practice it in this way, the easier it is when you're in a standing position. And often when we're going to speak, we're standing, sometimes seated, like in a situation like this. And it just makes it easier to return to that area. That way you could just maybe touch your belly with your hand or your fingers and just get in touch with that center. To get grounded, we can use visualization techniques, but we can also use some physical techniques. Now, if you're seated right now, which I believe most of you are, you can take your heels and just pretend my hand is my foot and these are my toes. So the back end of my hand, the palm area, is my heel, and bounce your heels against the floor. A few times of doing this will stimulate the nerves up through your body that attach into your brain, and this will help you get more grounded. So just a little bit of bouncing right before you go on is ever so helpful. I'm wondering, have any of you ever tried any of this or any of these techniques that I've shared with you so far? Awesome. I'm glad I'm teaching you something new. Does it sound like something you can try? If yes, give me a thumbs up. That's fabulous. The next thing I'm going to share with you, which is my 5th of 8, is what I call a happiness anchor. So we have to create these together, and I'm curious about what yours are going to be. Mine is my big toe. I chose my big toe as my happiness anchor because I wanted it to be something that I could use on stage at any time and nobody would notice. So what I did was I focused my happiness place to be my big toe. And I actually did it with both big toes. Oh, what is a happiness anchor, you're probably thinking? A happiness anchor is a physical motion that we do in the body that we program. So you've got to choose what your happiness anchor is going to be, and then I'll teach you how to program it. So it could be something like stroking your hair or maybe wiggling your fingers. You might not want to make it something big that people see on stage. So those of you who might keep a hand in a pocket, which is not a bad posture to walk out on stage and strike, might want to use something with your hand, maybe rubbing your thumb against a finger. But like I said, I chose my big toe, and basically what I do, if this is my big toe, I just move it and rub the bottom of my shoe or the surface where I am. So given that information, type in the chat what you might use as a happiness anchor. What could be an idea that you're doing other than my technique of using my toe? While you're thinking about that, I'll continue on and teach you about how to program it. Once you have the idea of what your anchor move will be, then what you do is anytime something makes you laugh or something makes you feel happy, you strike that movement, you do that movement. So I started off programming mine by watching funny movies. And anytime I laughed or felt really good about what was going on, I would rub my toe against a surface. I've even gotten to the place where I can just kind of wiggle my big toe and it works. And I still continue to feed my happiness anchor as I go on in time. So maybe I'm having a conversation, or maybe right now I feel like things are going really well. So I wiggle my toe a little bit. Is this making sense to everybody? If it is, give me a thumbs up. Thank you. That's excellent. So with that in mind, also when we're listening to speakers or we're learning something, we can even further program this happiness anchor. Now let's even ground into that happiness anchor more. Think about something you ate that was fabulous, or a place that you visited when we could travel and we could fly, and how that's going to feel when you break free and you can move about the planet again. That's a time to move your happiness anchor and ground it in even more. A very important part of preparing to speak is visualization. Now, I mentioned grounding before, so let me back up and tell you a little bit more in detail about how I do that. If I'm seated or standing, whatever part of me is touching the earth, I start to imagine roots going down. I actually sprout roots in my imagination and have them go down through the surface where I am, and I imagine them going down into the earth. This is also another way I can get rid of unnecessary energy. If the stamping hasn't worked, or even in a moment where I might be mid-talk, mid-story, and I feel a little wobbly, I might get back in touch with those roots. And also because my happiness anchor is in my toe, it makes it quite easy to do this. I can remember a time when I was getting ready to speak in a competition. And I think that's probably one of the most nerve-wracking moments any of us experience, is right before we're getting ready to do that, especially if we have to interact with other people. And I was in a large group of speakers, and we were at this big conference in a competition. And I had this feeling like something was going to happen to me. And sure enough, we went outside to take photographs, and somebody was holding a green smoothie juice and got bumped by somebody else, and the green smoothie went flying and it hit me, got all over my pants leg. Fortunately, I got cleaned up on time to get on stage, but boy, did that shake me. And it took a lot of focus on these different steps that I've shared with you to get myself centered and grounded again and happy so that I could feel good about going out on stage. So what I did was I got in touch with my breath. I made some sounds. I warmed up my voice. I got centered. felt my center. I got grounded, and I tuned back in with my happiness anchor. This made it so much easier, and I felt so much more confident and comfortable to get back on the stage. Part of what I was doing at that point was visualizing how everything was going to go. And that is the next step. Visualizing everything from the start, from your warm-up, all the way through your talk, and to the standing ovation, because we want to visualize that, is ever so important. Each and every little increment, every change, if there's jokes in your talk, see those going great, how you'll pause or blast through, because those are two different techniques we can use in comedy, and how the reactions will be. Imagine the faces and what everybody will be thinking and showing to you. These visualizations before you walk out on stage are super powerful. I'm wondering, has anybody ever tried that before? Visualizing from the start all the way through the applause at the end. Ah, so these are all new techniques for you. That's excellent. Some of you have. I'm really happy you have done that. The next thing is what you're doing backstage. Maybe you've gotten through these 6 steps so far, and now you're ready, you're on deck. The MC's assistant or the stage manager has come to you and said, okay, 5 minutes or maybe 15 seconds, and you're feeling still a little bit shook or rattled. This is the time to listen to your power song. Do any of you have a power song? Has anybody got a song that they like to hear as their intro when they're walking out on stage? That should be a power song for you. Of course, if you're using it in a public situation where it's being recorded, you want to make sure you have the rights to use the song. But this is the point where if you have earbuds or earphones of some sort, put them on. When people backstage see you with earphones, they don't try to talk to you. And at this point in your preparation to get on stage, you do not want to engage in conversation. You've done all these steps to get yourself ready. So right now is the time to turn inward and feel your vibe, feel your power pick up, and listen to your power song. I picked one which has a lot of rhythm and lots of different instruments, and it just gets me revved up. I feel like dancing when I hear this song, and that's the one I like to use. With your power song on, you are ready to walk out there. Just remember, you want to turn it off before you get on stage. That's awesome. Some of you are typing in songs, Jack Mack and the Heart Attack. I'm going to be somebody. Wonder Woman is so underrated. Not quite sure if that's a song. A fight song is a great idea. It could be any kind of song. There's really no right or wrong for it. And the 8th step, we're already through 7 steps. Can you believe it? It really doesn't take that much to learn them or to practice them, but it does help to make sure you're ready before you get out there. Once you walk out on stage, you might get another wave, another rush. And for some, it's a little bit nerve-wracking, and maybe you're thinking about what you want to say and you're really excited about sharing it. And so you just start right off into what you're going to talk about. There's different kinds of listeners that come to participate. And we have to realize we have different kinds of voices that we can use to relate to them. To be more charismatic and to draw people in, it's always good to start with a softer voice and a little bit slower, because we don't want to freak out the people who are more kinesthetic and sensitive to loud noises and big movements. But before we even open our mouths, what I encourage you to do is take one more very long, deep breath at this point. Just gazing out with a softened gaze at your audience. And you can do this when you're in Zoom meetings too. You take that deep breath in, and then you gaze around your audience. Now, if I'm on stage, I'm going to look even into the wings. So a little bit beyond 180 for my whole vision spans. And I'll take a deep breath in, turn my gaze to one side, and just gaze around the audience. Now at this point, it's really important to notice what you're thinking about when you're gazing at your audience. What I'd like to do is open up the mics now, if we can, for people who would like to give me some feedback about what they might be thinking about when they're looking at the audience. I'd love to hear your voices if you feel safe enough. And so if I could have my assistant please open up the mics of whomever would like to speak. Do you want to raise your hand to speak? That would be great. You could do that electronically, or you could do it visually. Jessica.
I have unmuted people, so they can go ahead and unmute themselves at this time.
Okay, perfect. So Lois has unmuted you all, and so when you're ready to speak, you can. Jessica, go ahead.
Yeah, I found that I'm completely blank, which I don't know if that's good or bad, but I have a way of just completely losing everything, breathing, and then going. I don't know if it's my time in classical music or whatever, but it's completely blank, and then it's just on.
It could be, but when you're playing an instrument, it's a little bit different because you've got that instrument between you and the audience.
Yeah.
When you're speaking, what I would encourage you all to do is give some positive energy to the audience when you're doing that gaze. When you're think, thank you is something you could think. You could think, I love you. You could put some love out there. I care about you. If there's a particular positive essence from what you're about to deliver, you could think that. I encourage you to try to reach out energetically and relate to the audience at that point, because I understand when there's an instrument, you can just jump into what you're doing because that's doing the speaking for you. But when it's coming from you, what I would love for you to do is to relate to the audience in that gaze. Now, for a lot of us, this is the point where we freak out. Am I right? This is where stage fright can kick in, especially, Jessica, if we don't have an instrument between us and the audience. I know that can happen with me. It's way more comfortable with an instrument. So this is another opportunity to take a very long, deep breath and kind of go through all these steps of centering, grounding. You're taking the deep breath, and then you can find that it's a lot easier to start off a little bit more soft. It's really nice to take your audience through a softer, gentler beginning, then maybe up into a little bit more auditory, and then up into big and visual and louder. Unless you're following somebody who had the audience completely warmed up, there wasn't a break. It's pretty much the MC said thank you to the previous speaker and is introducing you, and that audience is not going to hear you if that last speaker was Tony Robbins and you're starting off like this. So we also need to be really aware about who came before us. So it's a really good idea to come and listen to people before you talk. That way you can also relate back to what they were saying. And that makes everybody, not just the speaker, but the audience, feel more connected with you. Does anybody else have an idea of what they would think about before they open their mouth to speak? Would anybody else like to share? Okay, that's fine. How about questions about how any of these work, of what these techniques are that I shared with you? or how they help you get over stage fright. You see, if we have things that are anchors, we can easily overcome it.
So one of the questions here is, would you suggest breathing techniques? That's from Maribellis.
All right, that's an excellent, excellent question, Maribellis. Absolutely. The technique of making sound, of primordial sound, so with vowel sounds and also the sound, is actually a particular breathing technique. Now, I don't recommend hyperventilation type techniques, although some people do like to do belly pumping. That is a good way to make sure you have the stale air out of your lungs. And then another really nice technique, which I can share with you right now, is an integration technique called Anuloma Viloma in Sanskrit, but it's alternate nostril breathing. And basically, you're just breathing in one side and then out the other, and then in that side and back out. Now, with that type, we want to always go in the left, then out the right, in the right, and out the left. That might be a little bit too much to think about. So what will calm things down is just breathing in and out through the left nostril. Now, if that left nostril is clogged, you're going to have to figure out a way to unclog it. Our breathing actually cycles through different sides, and hemispherically, the brain is affected by it. So before we go out on stage, if we want to be more calmed down, getting the left channel to open up is a great thing to do. Also, breathing in and out through that left side can help get rid of any head pressure or pain.
All right.
The 8 steps, I did not create a handout for you, but this is being recorded, so you can go back over it. You can also invite me to your club and I'll teach it again. But tonight, what I wanted to do was bring you through it with me. We can go through it again if you want, and you can take some notes. Would you like to do that? I'd be more than happy to take you through it one more time. Why not?
Maybe before we do that, I have some other questions that were sent privately, so maybe we can go through those.
Oh,
and then if you have
let's
time.
do the private questions then, Lois. Thank you.
Okay. So there was one that had asked, how do you calm a trembling voice?
That's an excellent question. Thank you for that one. Trembling voice is when the muscles of the neck they can get twitchy. And so I will share another technique with you. This one, you take your 2 fingers on each hand. So do it along with me if you're on camera. And you push your cheeks up just a little bit. This makes your mouth curve into a little bit of a smile. Not real hard. You don't want to feel it pulling too hard on the bottom of your chin and your neck. Take a deep breath in through your nose. And then we're going to make this sound. Now, when you're making this, I know it's funny. When you're making this sound, don't clench your teeth together. Let your teeth be wider apart. And you can use all your fingers if you want. So I have a gap in my teeth about that wide. So that's how far apart my teeth are when I'm doing this. What this is doing is loosening up and relaxing the muscles in here. This is where it gets tight when you get that trembly thing going on. So you want to keep breathing in through the nose and then motorboating out the mouth. Now, another way to mend a squeaky spot, we can use this technique. And slide around in the vocal range, and you'll feel the gaps where you might have a jump, where it might go, and then all of a sudden there's just kind of quiet, and then there's sound again. As you start to relax and get in touch with the muscles that control the vocal cords, with the hands like this, relaxing and taking the pressure off of the lower muscles of the face and jaw, you will find that you can not only remove any trembling, but you'll make yourself laugh. Some of you were giggling, and that's good because any laughter is going to release endorphins, and any endorphin release is going to get rid of anything having to do with fear. Excellent question. Thank you so much. Lois, give me the next one, please.
Well, I'm going to interject and say, I was never able to do that before because I didn't know that you had to like not clench your teeth. So that was really cool. Thank you.
Awesome.
I know.
Awesome.
So I was so excited. I didn't realize I was unmuted, but I was so excited when I did it because I'd never been able to do that. So thanks.
That's excellent. Yeah, that's a great one, especially if you know in your talk you're going to hit some high-pitched sounds and some low-pitched sounds. That will absolutely prevent you from squeaking. Let me add one other little moving technique with the voice too. So after you do the, which to me is more of a B sound, ba 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 ba. If you make the ma sound, like mum, M-U-M, mum, this will also loosen up the jaw and the muscles of the jaw. Mum. And then you can squeak with the mum sound. So it's like you're making a mum sound, but you're squeaking. That will help smooth out those areas. So if you find that certain pitches of your voice cause you to tremble, try the technique. This helps. You've got to use this. If you don't use your fingers to push up on these muscles, you won't get the same effect if you do it without your hands. This one, if you're in a pinch, you can do it with one hand, but I highly recommend test it out. You'll see it's not the same without your hands. Lois, do you have another question for me?
We do. There was someone that didn't quite understand the happy anchor and was confused by that. Could you explain that a little bit more?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking that. So a happiness anchor is a gesture of some sort that you can do without anybody know you're doing it. So if you've got your hand in a pocket, you can rub your fingers together. Or I don't know if any of you are old enough to remember Carol Burnett, but Carol Burnett had a very obvious anchor that she did. At the end of her shows, she would say thank you to the audience after they were all cheering and she was done, and she would tug on her ear. That was her actually reinforcing her happiness anchor. So for Carol, she would do that before she would go out on stage. And then at the end of the show, when everybody was thanking her, she would do it again as her sign off. Now for me, I wiggle my big toes. And the way I do it is in such a way that when I'm standing or my feet are against a surface, I'm actually rubbing the surface with my big toe. So it's like this. If this is my big toe, I'm doing this inside my shoe or with my bare feet because I like to stand in bare feet a lot. Now, to reinforce it, anytime something makes you happy, like you asked me a great question or you made me giggle, I'll move my happiness anchor. I'll move my toes when I remember to do it, because this reinforces it. So each and every time we're in a situation where something's making us happy or making us laugh, that's when we reinforce the anchor by moving it again. Let me know if that clarified it or if you have further questions about it. Lois, okay.
So I realize for me, when I'm getting ready to do a speech, I make sure that I kind of jog up to the stage because it gets all those endorphins going. And someone had asked, how can a speaker help raise his or her energy before delivery?
Well, off stage, jump up and down, jog in place, do jumping jacks, do burpees, do squats. Shake it out, do crazy movements, stamp your feet. The more you stamp your feet on the ground, the more grounded you are. And then stand still and you'll feel the tingling in your body, and that's when you can send the roots down into the earth and feel your grounding again.
All right, thank you, Angela Gray, for that question. And here was an interesting one from Catherine McManus, and she apologized because she was a couple of minutes late. So if you covered it, we can talk later. But she says she has to clear her throat several times. Is there any specifics? I don't think you covered that. So
I did not,
clear,
because
Catherine.
that's part of my hygiene routine. But I will share it with you. So I actually have a YouTube video about how I keep my sinuses and my mouth clear and clean. So in that video, I show you how I actually clear out my sinuses with a technique from the Far East called neti, and also I use a tongue scraper. Now, if you're not ready to dive into a neti pot, that's okay, but a tongue scraper is the way to go, because what happens is there's a lot of gunk that gets on the very back of the tongue. Now, I have a copper tongue scraper that I got on Amazon, and they're totally inexpensive. And again, on that video, I've got the links. So if you go to ambikadevi.com, you can easily find your way to my YouTube channel and then find that particular video. So scraping the very back of the tongue. So about an hour ago, before I got ready to come and do all the other prep I did to come and speak with you today, I brushed my teeth, I rinsed out really, really well, and I scraped my tongue. And I made sure my sinuses were clear. There's nothing worse than you're out there, you're mid-story, and you just feel like you need to blow your nose or spit. And so it's really important to clear these things out before you get up to deliver something like a speech or sing. Excellent question. So tongue scraping is the way to go. I know some of you brush your tongue, but that's great for breath and the front of the tongue. But to get that gunk that gets in the way when you're a speaker or a vocalist of any sort, you need to get all the way around the back and scrape it. Excellent question.
All right. This one is from Rebecca Robin. She's worried that she might forget or lose her place. Do you have anything specific to help her with that?
That would be a whole different talk. I would love to teach you how I speech map, because speech mapping is the whole secret to that. I am not the type of speaker that memorizes. I create an idea and then a map, which is like a mind mapping. And if it's really, really important, I create a speech map and I put it where I can see it. So if I'm standing on a stage and the stage is higher than the audience, I can put it on a huge piece of paper and tape it down to the stage. If I'm in a smaller group, if there's the opportunity of a table or a place where I can put it, I will put a smaller map in front of me. If I'm doing a Zoom meeting, then I might have a little tiny one. But I don't tell stories the same way twice. So I feel the key to never losing your place is get used to telling your stories, understand what your points are, and then practice telling your stories. Tell them to friends, tell them to your club, tell them to anybody who will listen, and notice that sometimes you tell them a little bit differently and you like it. So it's really important to record it as well. That's an excellent question. Little off preparing, but that's once you're really on stage, and that's the technique of speech creation. I'd love to come back at a future conference and teach or give a talk on that.
Okay. Well, this one actually goes back to the clearing the throat and asks, does hot lemon water work?
Well, anything warm is going to be good for the voice, and water and lemon is classically wonderful for the throat and for the body. I would recommend, though, just hot water. So if you're going to sip water and you don't want room temperature, I wouldn't do cold water, everybody, because the cold is going to constrict the muscles and the tissue. So room temperature or warm water, like tea level, not scorching hot because you don't want to burn yourself in front of an audience. But warm water is going to keep everything soothed. I see somebody asking if I'm sitting. I am. And I do a lot of Zooming. Sometimes I stand, sometimes I sit. But if you're wondering, because of the way I'm moving, it's just because I've gotten really used to working here in a rectangle. Do we have any more questions?
Well, there was one that wanted to know what club you belong to and how do you customize your background? Are you on a virtual or a green screen? Or
I do have a green screen, everybody, and I make my own virtual backgrounds.
There you go. And what club?
I'm in the Treasure Coast Toastmasters, and I'd like to give a shout out to Valerie Johnson, who's from our club.
All right. Well, we have 5 minutes if you want to go back through those. Okay.
Oh, I see somebody really wants to know if I've studied NLP. Yes, I have.
There you go. Well, you have 5 minutes if you wanted to make that 4, if you wanted to go over those 8 steps real fast.
Yes, let me run through those. I'd be happy to put kind of a little synopsis in the chat. Would that work for all of you?
Either way, you can. I'm going to write it as soon as you say it. I'm going to type it out. So
Okay,
why don't you
I'll
just
put it in the chat for you, and then you've got it. How about that?
That works perfect.
All right. So the first one is getting in touch with your breath, and I'm giving you the 3 sounds. Just making sure this is copacetic. So there you go, everybody. You didn't have to write it down. You can just copy and paste. And if you're not really used to Zoom, there's 3 little dots in the chat. And if you click on those, you'll get the option to save the chat. And it will save right to your device. So you don't even have to worry. So the prep for me for getting on stage is getting in touch with my breath, then making some primordial sounds, ah, ooh, and and then I put them together because what I just tricked you into doing is doing the sound om. So that's how I also teach the om sound. Again, you can find a video about that on my YouTube channel. It's in 3 micro lessons. Then I get rid of unnecessary energy. I shake out, I kick, I stamp, I jump around. And then I stand still and I get in touch with my center. And then I bounce my heels on the earth and I start to imagine my roots going down into the earth and grounding me. And if I've got unnecessary energy, I'll give it to the earth. And if I need some energy, I'll draw it up for the earth. Then I tune in with my happiness anchor. And I told you how I created my happiness anchor. Remember, every time you're happy, you're laughing, move that happiness anchor again. It will take some time to remind yourself. You might need to write some notes and put it up, but after a while, it will become a part of you. Then visualize the entire talk, that it's going to be great. And if you're one of those people that likes to get in the mirror and give yourself a pep talk, do it. Visualize everything from your warm-up all the way through getting on stage, being introduced, doing your talk, through the incredible cheers and standing ovation that you're going to get. Listen to your power song. Block out everybody right before you go on. If you're in a situation like this and people are talking and you had to log in early, put your power song on and turn your mic off. Then walk out on stage, take one more deep breath, and scan your audience, giving love and gratitude to them. Thank you so much for inviting me and having me as a part of this incredible Zoom event. I hope what I've given you are steps that will change the way you open your mouth to speak forever.
Thank you. Ambika Devi. Did I say your name right?
That was good, yeah.
Yes. I phonetically had to spell that out. Let's give her a gigantic round of applause. And if you have it on your reaction down at the bottom, go ahead and clap for her because she did fabulous.
Thank you so much.
District 40, and look at this, you're getting claps in
Woohoo,
there.
look at it.
Thank you.
I visualized that.
And I will tell you that District 47 and its members appreciate you and your time. And I am putting in the chat right now. Here we go. There is the link for you all to complete your evaluation for her. I know she would really appreciate it. Complete it now before it kind of disappears in the chat room. And you were fabulous. Thank you again.
Thank you so much. It's my honor to be here.
All right. And I know we're having a break come up, and then we will have our welcome event with our keynote speaker, Darren LaCroix. But in the meantime, and there's also a story slam tonight. And Janine, I think you would be taking it over from here, correct?
I am. Hang on just a minute here. I'm actually going to pop up something so everybody knows what's coming next. And that way we're all on the same page and we don't lose track of what's going to happen next this evening, because we do have a lot of exciting things coming up. For starters, tonight we have, where'd it go? I lost my screen. All right, well, for the moment, there it is. Since it doesn't want to play nice. The slides are right there. We have our next session is the opening ceremony with with our keynote speaker, Darren LaCroix, the 2001 world champion, and he'll be speaking from champ to chump. We will basically be in recess until 7, but this room is going to stay wide open. You can stay, visit, hang out, come and go as you like. Encourage everyone to jump in a little bit early and say hello to each other. We will be starting promptly at 7 again, just like we've been doing for others. Ambika, thank you. We appreciate you being here today. And it's going great. I'm happy with the way things are going so far. So thank you all for being a part of this amazing event, exceptional event. Boy, Phyllis will come after me. If it's on recording, I'm in trouble. And we appreciate each and every one of you for being here.